Hi, my name is Jeff and welcome back to my workshop. Today we're working on a double-door auto parts box car for the Flxible Company. This is a custom printed car that was done by the Illinois Chapter of the Professional Car Society. If you're interested in one, I will leave a link with the email address for their contact in the description below. Inside the kit, you'll see we've got the usual assortment of parts that you get in an Accurel kit. The body, the bag with the trucks, couplers, screws, hardware, etc. A sprue with underframe details. These are door supports that they're now including in there, and you'll see how those get installed in a little bit. Of course, the doors, the underframe. So it's always a good idea to inspect all your parts when you first start. Also, in the kit is the instructions and the steel weight. So let's get started. I started by installing the brake gear underneath and screwed on the coupler box covers without couplers. You've seen me do this before in other videos, so I'm not repeating it here. But that prepares it for painting a grimy black color. I also inserted the plastic wheel sets into the trucks so I can paint those as well. And then I'll replace those with metal wheel sets later in the process. You want to, on these door supports, I want to remove the nubs where the flashing was attached. Just using my flush cutting sprue cutters to get as much off as possible. And then a 100 grit sanding stick. A couple of quick passes will take off what little is left. And you'll notice that there's a top marked on this so you know which way to put it into the car. It just goes in like this. The ribs help support the doors. So to glue it in, we'll get it into position and then glue from the inside. I am using the Fowler Super Expert solvent cement. This is my personal favorite. I pick it up at my local hobby shop, but it's also available from Walthers and other sources. So just put a bead along each side and a little bit across the top just to make sure that holds in place. Make sure it's sitting flush and then set it aside to dry. Once that has set up to the point where it'll hold, doesn't have to be fully cured, we'll do the other side. I'm just going to add a little more glue to make sure everything is holding well. Okay, so I repeated the process on the other side. Now I also painted the underframe, installed the trucks and couplers, and checked the coupler height. The weight, you'll see, fits in right here. And here I've got the doors in on the first side. So to do that, the kit comes with 4 doors. 2 have the tack boards on them, 2 do not. So you want to put the one, per the instructions, the door with the tack boards should go to the center of the car. So we'll get it test fitted in place before we glue it. That way if we have to do any filing or trimming to the doors, we can do that now. We've got a good fit. So I'm just going to add some glue to the ribs on that door support. That'll soften the plastic and then the doors will adhere to that. These doors won't open, but that's fine because when the car is moving, the doors should be closed anyways. The only time they'd be open is when they're loading or unloading the car. So I'm also adding a little bit of glue along the bottom edge just to help hold it in place. and then we'll repeat the process for the other door. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please make sure, or you're learning something from it, please make sure you give it a big thumbs up. It does help with the YouTube algorithm, so more people will find me. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe so you don't, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of my future videos. And if you have any suggestions or comments, please leave them below. I do read them all. Okay, so with the doors glued in place, we'll set that aside for a little bit, let everything dry, and get the weight installed on the underframe. To do that, first thing I'm going to do is make sure it's flat, and setting it down, I can see it's not. You turn it over, you can see there's a little bit of a bend to it, and it rocks as I put weight on either end. To fix that, I'm just going to take the weight and just press down in the center while lifting up on one end. It takes a lot of pressure, but it doesn't move it very much, but that'll get it flat. And then I'm applying Walther's goo to this. The method I use for goo is to put it on both pieces and let it dry. Spread it thin and then let the solvents evaporate, so it just leaves the layer of the adhesive down. And then you do that on both the weight, like that I'm doing here, and then I'll also do it on the underframe. Once it has, the solvent has evaporated, you put the two pieces together and they will stick pretty much instantly. So you do want to be careful, make sure you align everything before you set it down and in place, because you really only do get the one shot with this. And again, I'm just using a toothpick to spread the layer thin. Spreading it thin means that the solvent, first of all, the goo covers more area, and then also the solvent will evaporate a little bit quicker. Usually takes about 3 to 5 minutes on this, is what I give it. And then, since this underframe has notches or raised portions to indicate where the end is, I just have to have it centered, and I can drop it in place and then just apply some pressure to hold it in, hold it down. Now I already weighed the car and also checked the coupler height, so that is all good. This car actually came in with the metal wheel sets about 0.2 of an ounce overweight, which is fine based on NMRA standards. So make sure we align the B end of the body with the B end of the underframe, and then the underframe just kind of slides into place in the bottom of the car. I know some people who will glue that. I don't like to do that, because if I have to ever work on the car, I like to be able, the ability to be able to take it apart again. With that done, we're going to turn to weathering. So I'm going to start by putting in on some India ink alcohol wash to help bring out the details and just tone down the plastic a little bit. Just a general layer of dirt and grime that appears on cars. But this also will get into the cracks and crevices of things like the roof walk and the roof and the doors and ends, and help bring out the detail. You'll see as I put this on, it's a little heavy. It looks a little darker when it's wet, but it'll dry a little lighter. I'm using a light touch here, just a little bit. I'm actually tapping some of it off onto the paper towel off the brush, so I'm not applying too much at once. I'd rather have to go back and put a second coat on than have too much applied and not be able to remove it. I'm also going to do the roof, working from the peak of the roof or the roof walk towards the ends, because that's the way water would flow if it were when the car's out in the rain. Once this is applied, I'll let this dry, and then if I need to, we'll go back and add a second coat. As I said, with weathering, I like to do multiple light coats whenever possible. That way, I build up the amount in layers until we get to the point where it looks right to my eye. But you can already see that the details in that roof walk are starting to pop a little more. But we're going to add one more layer on here. On the roof walk, we want to get that India ink down into the crevices and let the painted show through on top. So with the roof done, I'm going to turn my attention to the doors, the ladders, and the grab irons, as well as just a general streaking of it down the sides of the car. Again, same basic concept here, just adding it so that it settles into the grooves of the doors. And along the grooves, the edges where the ladder rungs meet the sides, since these are molded on details, this will actually help them pop out and look a little more realistic. Once this side's done, we'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, you can see I've got that on. I did pull down on the ends. For the ends, you want to be careful about a couple of things on here. You want to make sure you get it into the ladders so that the ladder differentiates itself. Also get up under the roof line and then along the ridges of the end frame to help make everything separate out so you see more detail in it as you're looking at the model. And as on the sides, it adds that touch of grime and gives it a more natural look. That's the A end. On the B end, we want to make sure we also catch we're going to want to make sure we catch that brake wheel and the brake wheel stand. So with that done, now we're going to add our next layer of weathering, and that's going to be some pan pastels. I've got a number of different colors. I've got a silver, I've got a neutral gray, I've got 3 different levels of burnt sienna. This is burnt sienna tint. And then I have burnt sienna and burnt sienna shade, as well as red oxide. So I'm using a wedge-shaped applicator. This is one that came from Pan Pastels that they sell. I bought mine on Amazon. But I've also seen them in other art supply stores that carry Pan Pastels. So I'm applying the silver to the roof walk. Again, I'm using a light touch, kind of a dry brush technique, and even rubbing some of it off because I want the red paint to show through as well as the black that we so carefully applied, the Illini ink. And then I'm applying some of the burnt sienna tint to the roof, and then using the sponge in my finger, the sponge applicator in my finger, to rub a lot of it off, just to give the roof a look that it's been faded by the sun. And then we'll do the same thing on the sides. Again, taking most of it off the brush, so I'm just putting a light coat on, and then even that's too light, so we'll pull some of it off. Now, this is the finished car. I added a little bit of dirt and dust above the trucks, added some rust to the brake gearing and to the hardware on the doors. Also used a little bit of gray on the tack board to make it look like the wood is starting to show through. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and stay tuned to my channel for my next project.